living in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County, I believe that you're safer for the next 30 days.
They were assaulted and shot by someone and couldn't defend themselves because their guns were taken from them.
An escalation in violence perpetrated with guns, particularly among our young people, in a manner that I have never seen before.
A critical and urgent issue, gun violence in America. We're here because gun violence is destroying community.
We can't sit here and have debates. We can't wait for the 30-day session in January.
This rule turns law-abiding gun owners into felons is a result of unelected bureaucrats.
That suspension does not apply to any private property.
Wyme says the Missouri law exposes people to greater harm by interfering with the federal government's ability to enforce firearms regulations.
Maybe 3%, maybe 5%. But we're looking at what could have prevented 90% of the mass shootings.
I want to be clear, this wasn't based on violence. This is based on threats, specifically to individuals, on gangs.
Breaking news, the second legacy of New Mexico's gun grab attempt was launched. New Mexico governor's controversial public health order and legal challenges. The recent issuance of an emergency order by the governor of New Mexico, Michelle Grisham, banned the legally permitting carrying of weapons in the cities of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. Since then, U.S. District Judge David Herrera Urias has issued an injunction to temporarily block the implementation of this order, noting the action's apparent violation of the Second Amendment. Notably, the directive targeted Sections 1 and 4 of the Public Health Order, which prohibited the possession of firearms on state property, as well as in public schools and parks, with the exception of law enforcement officers and qualified security officers. The legal challenge brought against these limits asserted that they violated the rights guaranteed by the Second Amendment. The case relied on previous decisions made by the Supreme Court that validated the ownership of firearms for the purpose of self-defense, both inside and outside the home. The attorneys who were present in the courtroom came to the conclusion that it is in the public's best interest to protect civil rights, including the right to carry a weapon.
That you said that all assault weapons should be banned. Is that a fair statement?
An escalation in violence perpetrated with guns, particularly among our young people, in a manner that I have never seen before.
Defund the police, and then they want to take our Second Amendment right to defend ourselves.
This was the general consensus among the attorneys. The attorney for Governor Grisham indicated that the public health order was temporary and not a law. As a result, this statement provided the impression that it did not have the same effect on the rights of people who live in the state of New Mexico. The court, on the other hand, did not share this view, and as a result, it was decided that other sections of the public health order could continue to be implemented. These included recommendations to improve healthcare services for those who are homeless and who use drugs, as well as plans to increase the number of New Mexico state police officers stationed in Bernalillo County. Political leaders from all over the country have given their thoughts on the present situation in New Mexico, which has received both support and criticism from the public as a result of their statements. For example, Senator Greg Baca, a leader of the Republican Party in the Senate, has sent his gratitude to the judge for his decision to rule against an order that the senator believes to be unlawful. In the meanwhile, Governor Grisham reaffirmed her dedication to working within the framework of the state's public health system to address concerns over drug abuse and gun violence. She also made a plea to leaders from the variety of backgrounds to work together on developing policies that will save lives and make the environment safer. In addition, the Attorney General of New Mexico, Raul Torres, encouraged a collaborative approach to complex issues, such as strengthening law enforcement, enacting stricter gun laws, enhancing regulations for pretrial detention, investing in mental health and drug treatment, reducing recidivism, collecting real-time data on gun crimes, and implementing protective service frameworks to prevent future offenses.
That suspension does not apply to any private property.
This rule turns law-abiding gun owners into felons is a result of unelected bureaucrats.
I'm not safe. And what are you going to do about it? I'm terrified in my own neighborhood.
This case that was brought before a court in New Mexico throws light on the ongoing dilemma with public health orders, constitutional rights, and the difficult balancing act that must be conducted between resolving concerns about public safety and maintaining individual liberty. Legal standoff over gun rights and public safety. The Attorney General of New Mexico took a resolute and unwavering stand when he announced that his office would not defend the emergency order that had been issued by the governor. Despite the fact that he was required by statute to defend state officials in financial concerns, he insisted that his primary responsibility was to safeguard and defend the constitutional rights of each and every person. As a direct result of this, he decided against providing a legal justification for the measures taken by the governor. This legal impasse puts to the forefront an important challenge to the attempt by the governor of New Mexico to restrict the freedom to carry firearms in the state. It is anticipated that the verdict of this lawsuit will have far-reaching repercussions for the continuing debate regarding gun rights and public safety. In view of the current circumstances, advocates for the right to bear arms are strongly pushing legislative answers over defensive measures. In spite of the fact that this state's Attorney General is notoriously opposed to firearms and is in fact against them, he acknowledges that the scope of this order is excessive and that it violates the Constitution.
For God's sake, America already has more guns than people. How many guns do we need until everybody is safe?
Because I hope we'll do more. Because the city of Indianapolis has higher murder rates than the city of Chicago.
If you are committing a crime in Bernalillo County and we catch you, we're going to force you to get treatment through the criminal justice system.
Notably, the governor has requested that the state police investigate the possibility of enforcing this order after the sheriff of Bernalillo County made it clear that he will not do so. A temporary restraining order has been secured against the order that the governor of New Mexico issued that outlawed open and concealed carry within the state. This order was in response to a lawsuit that was filed by Gun Owners of America, a major organization that advocates for the rights of gun owners. The GOA contends that the state of New Mexico does not have a valid legal basis for its conduct, and as a result, it is requesting a restraining order and an ex parte court hearing. In addition to this, they're asking for an immediate emergency temporary restraining order in conjunction with other organizations in an effort to block the implementation of this public health decree. In addition to this, they plan to file a motion in the future for a preliminary permanent injunction in an effort to stop the government from carrying out the order. The recent hearing on multiple TROs in the GOA case revolved around New Mexico governor's order, which banned both open and concealed carry within the state. The judge's decision to grant a temporary restraining order against the order was significant, given the state's attorney's challenging task, especially in light of the Bruen decision. The judge's rationale included a likelihood of success on the merits, the plaintiffs meeting the TRO standards, a likelihood of success on the merits, a demonstration of irreparable harm, and a balance in favor of the public's interest.
Could lose the ability to use these tools, and as a result, may not be able to operate their firearm.
Ban assault weapons. Ban them again. Do it now. Enough. Do something.
Living in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County, I believe that you're safer for the next 30 days.
In a parallel legal battle, the California Rifle and Pistol Association, Gun Owners of America, Second Amendment Foundation, and other parties have filed a lawsuit against the state of California regarding their new concealed carry ban implemented through SB 2. This new law has made it exceedingly difficult for individuals to obtain concealed carry permits within the state by designating numerous sensitive locations. This move was a direct response to the Supreme Court's Bruen decision. Prior to Bruen, California operated under a may issue good cause standard, but after the ruling, they followed the lead of New York and New Jersey in implementing more restrictive laws. California now seeks to establish a hyper-restrictive concealed carry scheme, making the permitting process even more challenging and rendering permits nearly useless. Notably, cases like the Antonik case and the New Jersey Coons case have yielded positive outcomes in district courts, even in areas known for being anti-gun. It is hoped that the lawsuits filed by CRPA, GOA, SAF, and Reno as plaintiffs will similarly help prevent the enforcement of California's new concealed carry ban. The battle for the right to carry firearms remains a critical issue, with some states challenging the Supreme Court's Bruen decision.
Americans have the fundamental right to keep and bear arms that shall not be infringed.
Or licensed security officer shall possess a firearm.
Seizure of weapons from the homes of law-abiding American citizens.
Organizations such as CRPA, GOA, FBC, and others are actively advocating for citizens' rights. Donations and support for these organizations' legal efforts play a crucial role in defending these rights. Governor's controversial move to suspend Second Amendment rights. New Mexico Governor Michelle Grisham's declaration of a state of emergency in response to increased gun-related incidents in Bernalillo County and Albuquerque has stirred significant controversy. This decision to suspend specific Second Amendment rights has ignited a heated debate, with proponents arguing it infringes on individuals' Second Amendment rights and opponents seeing it as a necessary step to address rising gun violence in the region. Governor Grisham contends that the rights of victims and their families should take precedence over constitutional guarantees. Prominent advocates for stricter gun control measures, including David Hogg, Ted Lieu, and Ryan Bussey, have voiced their disagreement with the governor's decision. As key figures in the legal and law enforcement communities publicly reject the governor's directive and declare their intention to defy it on the grounds of its alleged illegality, the controversy surrounding the issue intensifies.
A critical and urgent issue: gun violence in America. We're here because gun violence is destroying community.
Our Second Amendment. It's a hell no to government trampling on our freedoms.
Supporting the National Organization Women's Legal Defense Fund. I didn't know.
The enactment of the 2021 New Mexico Civil Rights Act, which eliminated qualified immunity for government agents, has caused a seismic shift in the legal landscape governing the actions of government agents. Bernardino County Sheriff John Allen expresses concerns about the implications for his officers, particularly the risks associated with preventing law-abiding citizens from exercising their right to self-defense. Striking a balance between ensuring public safety and preserving citizens' fundamental rights becomes paramount in light of the governor's order to suspend Second Amendment rights, potentially affecting people's ability to protect themselves and their property. A surge of new lawsuits has been filed in response to the enforcement of this firearms restriction, with the National Association for Gun Rights leading these efforts and seeking various remedies, including summary judgment, declaratory judgment, a temporary injunction, and a permanent injunction.
We can't sit here and have debates. We can't wait for the 30-day session in January.
That men and women in this country have the right to defend their own lives.
Getting assault weapons, AR-15s, out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them.
Their concise legal briefs underscore the gravity of the constitutional issue at the heart of the matter. In summary, Governor Grisham's decision to temporarily suspend specific Second Amendment rights in response to heightened gun violence has ignited a national conversation about the boundaries of individual liberties enshrined in the Constitution. The outcome of this legal battle could have profound implications for the future of gun rights and constitutional safeguards in the United States.
An escalation in violence perpetrated with guns, particularly among our young people, in a manner that I have never seen before.
They were assaulted and shot by someone and couldn't defend themselves because their guns were taken from them.
Second Amendment protects firearms in common use at the time and also said this, quote, for lawful purposes like self-defense.
National Association for Gun Rights challenges official national gun ban in New Mexico. The National Association for Gun Rights has taken a bold stance against New Mexico's official national gun ban, formally petitioning for a declaratory judgment that deems the ban on carrying firearms as unlawful. This move has raised questions about the absence of historical precedent in certain regions and the determination of advocacy groups like NAGR in challenging such decisions through legal avenues. The ongoing legal battle over the official national gun ban underscores the importance of vigilant and well-prepared organizations in safeguarding Second Amendment rights. The controversy surrounding this ban has shed light on a systemic issue at the national level, where politicians sometimes prioritize expediency and personal gain over policy substance.
The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, Mr. President, as you well know,
an assault weapon's only purpose is to kill people efficiently.
Their legal analysis is poor, their conclusions are misguided, their outcomes are dangerous.
The introduction of the 28th Amendment has sparked concerns that some initiatives are more about political posturing than actual legislative progress, potentially jeopardizing people's rights. With upcoming court hearings and judgments expected, developments in this case have generated significant anticipation. New Mexico citizens, particularly those in the Albuquerque area, have exercised their First Amendment rights in a peaceful manner, but there is a cautionary note suggesting that even this privilege might be temporarily suspended if the governor deems it necessary. This group serves as a valuable resource for understanding the nuances of Washington state gun ownership laws. Bernalillo County Sheriff John Allen has added fuel to the fire by vowing not to enforce the emergency firearms ban, citing his belief that the order infringes upon citizens' constitutional rights. A broader discussion has emerged about the responsibility of law enforcement to carry out executive orders that may be perceived as exceeding constitutional limits. Democratic Governor Michelle Grisham has acknowledged the likelihood of legal challenges following the decree and raised concerns that criminals may not adhere to the order, underscoring the challenge of reducing gun violence through executive action.
From 2017 to 2021, 143 children were killed by guns.
We have a bunch of resources that we can utilize to make sure that we start making a dent.
But she and the others at the table said despite their differences, they're committed to working together.
And are likely not to agree with the totality of the first initial steps.
The ACLU has raised objections to the governor's response to gun violence, expressing concerns that it could lead to overly aggressive policing and potential infringements on individuals' privacy. Leading Republican in the New Mexico Senate, Greg Baca, who resides in Belen, has spoken out against the order, arguing that it violates the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. Sheriff Allen has expressed his shock and dismay at the governor's sudden announcement of the plan, emphasizing the need to translate his concerns into action, such as calling for a special session of the state legislature to address the rising violence in Albuquerque. The future of gun control debates in New Mexico will be shaped by legal challenges, public opinion, and political maneuvering. The right to keep and bear arms, as guaranteed by the Second Amendment, remains a point of contention for those who argue that the emergency legislation infringes upon their constitutional rights. As cases progress through the legal system, the precedents established by the courts may influence the executive branch's authority during perceived crises. Public sentiment will play a pivotal role in shaping future gun control debates. While some members of the New Mexico community have expressed support for the governor's efforts to combat gun violence, others vehemently oppose the order as a violation of their constitutional rights. Discussions about striking a fair balance between protecting the public and individual liberty are likely to persist. The trajectory of gun control discussions in New Mexico will be influenced by political factors. Republican lawmakers have voiced strong objections to the governor's implementation of the official national gun ban, viewing it as an abuse of power. The combination of public outcry and legal challenges could lead to further political maneuvering, such as introduction of legislation aimed at altering or repealing the emergency order. The future of gun control debates in New Mexico stands at a crossroads, influenced by ongoing legal battles, public sentiment, and political dynamics. Governor Grisham's recent measures have drawn criticism not only from fellow Democrats, but also from figures like David Hogg, congressional Democrats, and CNN. This situation may have done some harm to gun control cause than any potential gains within a similar time frame. During a CNN interview, Governor Michelle Grisham faced questions regarding the potential violation of both the U.S. Constitution and the New Mexico State Constitution in her recent gun control measures. She defended her actions by emphasizing the state's public health objectives and comparing her measures to existing gun control regulations that had not been declared unconstitutional and were still in effect. New Mexico Gun Ban Challenge, Judge's Statement on TRO. We offer you exclusive data from the words made by the judge in the courtroom in connection with a significant new development about the attempted gun ban in New Mexico that was implemented by an executive order issued by the governor. It is important to emphasize that the formal judgment has not yet been released, which means that the details presented here are exclusive. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty of the situation. There are 3 audio snippets of the judge issuing a TRO against the state of New Mexico and against the governor of that state. This legal win covers the entire spectrum of the problem and leaves no stone unturned in its investigation. The judge obviously gave this matter a lot of thought and consideration.
They are obsessed with attacking law-abiding Americans' Second Amendment liberties.
This is the most difficult question in a democracy.
Gun violence does not discriminate. It happens everywhere and all the time.
The first audio excerpt is as follows. Whether the plaintiffs have shown that all 4 factors for establishing a TRO have been met in this case. Whether the plaintiffs have shown that an injunction should be issued. The court will grant the plaintiff's motion for a temporary restraining order after reviewing the motions that are currently before the court, the arguments that were made by the parties during this hearing, the public health order that was signed by the Secretary of the New Mexico Department of Health, Executive Order 2023-130, and the applicable law regarding restrictions on the public carrying of firearms. Insofar as Section 4 of the New Mexico Department of Health's Public Health Emergency Order, issued on September 8, 2023, imposes additional restrictions on the carrying of firearms that were not already in place prior to the issuance of the public health order. The court will temporarily enjoin the defendants from applying and enforcing Section 1 of the Public Health Emergency Order issued by the New Mexico Department of Health on September 8, 2023, and Section 4 of the Public Health Emergency Order issued by the new temporary restraining order issued with broad implications. The current decision made by the judge is very clear. The public health order and the method taken by the governor of New Mexico have led to the issuing of a temporary restraining order. The motivation for this action is the perception that the plaintiffs have a good chance of winning the case based on its merits. The significance of this judgment has far-reaching repercussions, as it will have an effect on each and every governor in the U.S. and will raise awareness among proponents for gun control all throughout the country. It is essential to keep in mind that this is not only the viewpoint of a single judge, rather it establishes a fundamental precedent in the law.
We are paying for these weapons of war on our streets with the blood of our children,
either openly or concealed, within cities or counties.
It eliminates the possibility of manipulating public health situations in order to restrict rights guaranteed by the Second Amendment. To put it simply, this is exactly why we have been studying this problem in such depth. The actions of the governor have placed limitations, not just on herself, but also on her fellow members of the DNC and the larger group of those who advocate for stricter gun regulation. They are unable to continue along a route even remotely similar to that, let alone in a manner that might be considered more gradual. Let's move on now to the second audio clip, in which the judge will go into more depth about some parts of the case. This passage is really important and provides additional insights. Court findings: substantial likelihood of success and irreparable harm. The court has determined that the plaintiffs have met their burden of demonstrating a substantial likelihood of success on the merits. This conclusion draws from the Supreme Court's significant rulings, including New York State Rifle and Pistol Association Incorporated versus Bruin, District of Columbia versus Heller, and McDonald versus Chicago. Notably, the court emphasizes the Bruin case, which solidifies an individual's right to carry a handgun for self-defense outside the home. This legal precedent supports the plaintiff's argument for justifying a temporary restraining order at this preliminary stage of the litigation.
They say that when we argue for removing weapons of war from the streets of America, we're actually telling them to repeal the Second Amendment. They are coming for your guns. They're listing them out in this extensive legislation. We are not telling them to repeal the Second Amendment. We are telling them to read the Second Amendment.
Furthermore, the court underscores that failure to issue an injunction would result in irreparable harm to the plaintiffs. The Supreme Court has established that even brief infringements on constitutional rights constitute irreparable harm, as exemplified in cases such as New York Times Company versus United States and Elrod versus Burns. Key legal precedents and a fundamental principle. First and foremost, it's crucial to understand that this judge invoked what I'd like to call the three horsemen of the gun control apocalypse, which are the most critical takeaways from this case. These three elements are of paramount importance. 1. The Bruin decision. The judge references this decision, highlighting its significance. 2. The McDonald decision. Another vital element he discusses, reinforcing the plaintiff's position. 3. Fundamental constitutional rights. The judge emphasizes a fundamental principle: violating a constitutional right, even if it's temporary, is impermissible.
And others prompting the governor to put a public health order in place taking aim at gun violence.
Your right to own a gun can also be restricted.
People thought that the federal government would never be able to get a gun law bill passed again. They got one done in the last year.
The combined effect of these three factors is to hinder efforts to control gun violence on a broader scale. It is imperative that you have a firm grasp on this primary idea. The governor made an effort to minimize the impact of her actions by claiming that the measure is simply a suspension and not an outright prohibition. She insisted that it was merely a temporary arrangement that might be prolonged at her discretion. This argument was, however, disregarded by the judge when the TRO was issued. The judge did so by referring to a legal precedent established in the Heller decision, the McDonald decision, and the Bruin decision. Now, let's go on to the third audio recording, which was provided straight by the judge. Hearing his voice provides an additional layer of authenticity to the investigation. As other courts have found, it is always in the public interest to prevent the violation of a party's constitutional rights, and the balance of equities favors those whose constitutional rights are threatened. The court finds that these factors also favor the issuance of a TRO. As other courts have found, it is always in the public interest to prevent the violation of a party's constitutional rights. It is anticipated that the written order regarding the matter will be issued by the court this afternoon. On September 13, which puts us about on the 27th day since the ban was enforced on September 8th, we are in violation of the rule. We still have roughly a week until any new information regarding this topic becomes available. This matter is of the utmost importance and egregiousness due to the fact that the judge has made it abundantly plain that violating the constitutional rights of American citizens is not acceptable. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.